never rescue any animal frozen in ice. Shout out What Top. I don't know how to say it. What Top? What up? I don't know. But hey, make sure y'all go subscribe to them. And let's go ahead and get into it.
What if I tell you the heat of the human body is lethal for some insects? Snow scorpion flies are so sensitive to temperature change that the heat from your palm is enough to kill them right away. But snow scorpion flies are not the only creatures whose relationship with the cold can be called weird. Believe me, it's just the beginning. Imagine this scene. It's cold, snows everywhere, and suddenly you see something crawling right on it. What the hell is this, ants? No, it doesn't look like that. These are tiny creatures that aren't bothered by low temperatures and keep growing in numbers with each passing day. They just keep multiplying. And now there's a whole bunch of them. Seems like they're creeping up on your homes. It looks like a horror movie. But this is actually a real story that happened in February 2016 in Russia. How did the people react? Well, how would you react? A local woman said, "It's scary, very scary. We don't know what it is. If we only knew what it is, well, we don't know what it is." In general, it's pretty clear. Pretty clear that nothing's clear. All right. Steve and I did get to the bottom of it. These little black ant-like creatures are not insects, arachnids, or anything of the sort. They belong to a separate Intognatha class and are called springtails or snow fleas.
Hey,
Springtails are not very similar to fleas, although they also have 3 pairs of limbs. They have the same mighty jumping skills as ordinary fleas, but unlike insects, they use special tails instead of powerful hind legs. When the tail of a snow flea unfolds, it launches the creature over large distances, up to 2 inches or even further. If that doesn't seem impressive to you, consider this. The springtail is only about 0.08 inches long. And yes, they are completely safe for your pets because snow fleas don't care about blood at all. They feed on decaying organic matter in the soil. The main question is, what the hell are these small things doing in the snow, and why are there so many of them? All normal insects and arthropods don't behave like this, but that's because they don't know how to produce an anti-freezing agent, unlike springtails, which do. Snow fleas produce a protein rich in glycine, which in turn prevents the formation of ice crystals. That's how you keep chewing organic matter even in extreme cold. Well, since I mentioned that insects are different from springtails, let's figure out what they're up to during winter. Most act like certain mammals. That is, they gather resources and hibernate. This process in insects is called diapause. They find some kind of shelter from the cold. They may burrow into the ground, hide in tree trunks and under rocks. Well, then they slow down their metabolism and wait until it gets warmer. Other insects, like the larva of the European corn borer, can actually live above ground in winter. Well, they won't become active anyway, but they can boast good cold resistance. Studies have shown that the larva can survive even being cooled to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit for several minutes. The flightless Antarctic, let's say mosquito, with the complex name Belgica antarctica, produces a large amount of sugars in its cells that lower the freezing point of liquids. As a bonus, the mosquito allows the freezing soil around it to pull almost every drop of water from its body. In short, it goes through extreme dehydration and survives. Yes, in Antarctica. By the way, this is the largest purely terrestrial creature that lives on the continent. To be honest, I was surprised when I realized that Antarctica, in fact, is also inhabited by insects. I mean, it's very cold there after all, and they're so small and, fragile. But you know what's even weirder? The amount of organisms that can live at a mind-blowing depth. Canada's Kidd Mine is the world's deepest copper-zinc mine. It's 1.9 miles deep, but even 1.5 miles below the Earth's surface, the mine is teeming with life, in eternal darkness. In an ancient underwater reservoir that's remained undisturbed for 2 billion years, local single-celled organisms don't need oxygen because they breathe sulfur compounds. They also don't need sunlight. Instead, they live off chemicals in the surrounding rock. And this is just one place full of many unique organisms. How many other living beings are hiding in the depths of the Earth?
I don't know.
Turns out that scientists have a rough idea. A team from the ETH Zurich estimated that some 500,000 trillion cells live in the deep Earth. I think this figure includes not only single-celled organisms, but here's a fact for you. Collectively, they weigh 300 times as much as all living people combined. Can you imagine that? Yeah, I couldn't believe it myself at first. Breaking news! Scientists have found life on the surface. This is not a joke. I repeat, there's life on the surface. Collectively, surface organisms weigh 300 times less than all of us. If you think about it, there's nothing particularly surprising about the fact that various organisms, including insects, can survive underground. Yes, I said it was weird, but after all, when the temperature outside drops, it's more or less stable and warm inside. Underground springs also help underground creatures a lot. Well, you get the idea. You probably realize that insects can be very different, so it takes different temperatures to freeze them. Let's say, for good. Approximately 5 degrees Fahrenheit is enough to wipe off most single individuals, unless, of course, they find shelter. Minus 31 degrees Fahrenheit will certainly kill almost all the pests the farmers usually fight. Meanwhile, bees feel great even during severe cold weather. They get into the hives, huddle to each other like penguins to stay warm, while they eat up all the supplies of honey to stay even warmer. Hemidina maori, insects that live only in New Zealand, are best adapted to frosts. Like many other endemic creatures, these guys have a number of features. First, they look like a mix between a grasshopper and a bee, something like that. Second, they live in the mountains, more than 4,900 feet above sea level. That's very high. And finally, these insects can withstand several cycles of freezing and thawing and come out alive and kicking. While these creatures remain motionless, they're in a state of suspended animation and can live up to 17 days at a temperature of about 14 degrees Fahrenheit. At temperatures below 14 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 85% of the water in their body crystallizes. And this is one of the highest ice contents known for any animal. Usually, if the water in the body freezes, its crystals break all the tissues in their way. It's almost impossible to survive this, but Hemidina maori do. Well, they stay inactive for at least 5 months a year, but these are minor details. The ability to turn off your body for a while is an amazing skill that we humans could really use. Not only because sometimes you just want to sleep through the cold season. Think about space travel. It'll take years to cover huge distances, and the ability to put your body into a sleep mode would be very useful. Directors have already made several films on this topic. Alas, so far it remains a fiction. Scientists can't figure out how to do this. So far, we haven't found unique genes that enable hibernation in some animals. There are no confirmed cases of natural human hibernation. In short, the only thing that science can offer us so far is therapeutic hypothermia, a method of cooling the human body almost to the freezing point of water. Cold slows down cellular and brain functions and protects the patient's body from damage after surgery. Usually a person is chilled for a day or two, although one woman in China was kept in a cooled state for 2 weeks to allow her brain to heal after an injury. The woman fully recovered and returned to her daily life. But this is not enough to be considered a real human hibernation. Perhaps evolution just didn't like us enough to give us the ability to fall asleep for a long time. However, termites didn't get it either. But instead of simply dying when the cold weather sets in, which would probably make many people happy, termites have learned to search for reliable, warm shelter. They usually burrow into the ground and continue to do what they've always done, look for food. But the cold can kill termites if they get to the surface, which is why termites have learned to create exploratory tubes out of mud and feces. It's something like an overhead pedestrian crossing. By the way, they use the same strategy to get into our homes if their wooden parts are not near the soil. Just think about it. For termites, a human home looks like a warm paradise with tons of food. Termites love to eat so much they can destroy a house in 3 months. A story like that happened in September 2020. A young family bought a house for $660,000. The building inspector assured them everything was fine, but 3 months later, when the family moved into the house, termites began to crawl out even from the outlets. The entire building was infested with termites, including the load-bearing beams, and it was simply not safe to stay inside. The only thing they could do was completely demolish the house. But you know, termites are not the worst thing. Even if they destroy your homes and crawl out of outlets, because there are worms that have slept for 42,000 years, and they certainly have a nasty headache. These nematodes, tiny worms that live in the soil, have been frozen since the Pleistocene. I mean, they lived in the times of mammoths, and they entered a very long hibernation. And then they were extracted by scientists, extracted and awoken. Seriously, 2 species of these worms have been successfully revived. According to the study, after defrosting the worms, the researchers saw them moving and eating, and most likely having no clue what had happened. Why did I say it's scary? Just think about it. 42,000 years ago, our planet was very different, with different viruses and diseases for which modern people may simply not have a cure. I mean, of course, it's very cool to revive something so ancient and thoroughly study it, but that's not the most important thing here. Apparently, it was the thawing of permafrost soil that allowed scientists to find these nematodes. Many researchers believe that rising temperatures could also give new life to dormant microbes. The more ice will melt, the higher the risk that some virus will spread to us from ancient times, which could cause another deadly disease, or several of them. By the way, one of the scientists who share this point of view is Dr. Dennis Carroll, who's been called the man who saw the pandemic coming. So it looks like we need to be more careful. See you later.
Hey, man. You learn something new every day. If you like this video, man, make sure you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, man. And make sure y'all subscribe to, like I just found out, we are top. Alright. I don't know what to say else because, you know, this video already longer than 10 minutes. I don't get paid for this anyway, man. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, subscribe.